When I first played through Pokemon Sword and Shield and encountered Grapploct for the first time, I knew from the start that it would be one of my new favorite Pokemon based on its design, and I had a feeling that it would be one of the better Pokemon from a competitive standpoint. And to be fair, if you take a quick glance at its stats and other attributes, it actually does seem like it's a pretty good Pokemon. Unfortunately, however, that doesn't exactly seem to be the case for our little octopus friend. Sure, it does have some nice characteristics to it, but in competitive battling, Grapploct doesn't even hold a candle despite having 8 arms. So is Grapploct the worst new Pokemon introduced in Sword and Shield? Let's take a more in-depth look at Grapploct from a competitive standpoint and see if that is the case or not. Before we get too far into this, it's important to understand this series focuses on a competitive battling standpoint for Pokemon. This means that playing through the regular story, playing against gym leaders, the design of the Pokemon, or how much you might like the specific Pokemon doesn't apply to how good it is competitively. We will rate Grapploct on a scale 1 through 5 based on its offense, defense, versatility, Movepool, and overall viability. If Grapploct doesn't excel in any of these categories, then it might just be the worst new Generation 8 Pokemon out there. Now to give a brief overview on Grapploct, it is a mono fighting type Pokemon with the abilities Limber and Tactician. Grapploct has a base stat distribution of 80 in HP, 118 in attack, 90 in defense, 70 in special attack, 80 in special defense, and 42 in speed. At a glance, all this really doesn't seem too bad. 118 is a very good attack stat, and although its defenses aren't exactly amazing, they're definitely passable. The speed is on the slower side, however, but its abilities aren't terrible either to help make up for that a little bit. The biggest surprise to Grapploct to me is that it's not a water type or even a water/fighting type, which I thought for sure would be when I first encountered it because it is an octopus and I did find it in the water after all. So taking a look at some of Grapploct's positive, first positive you have Tactician. This is a really great ability. Part of the reason why Caesar is such a great Pokemon is because it boosts the power of your lower power moves, and in my opinion is one of the best offensive abilities in the game. On top of this, you have your 118 attack stat, which is pretty good overall, especially if you combine the Tactician ability. Grapploct also has some pretty decent coverage options to a wide variety of opponents, on top of a unique signature move called Octolock, which lowers the target's defense and special defense and prevents them from switching out. This can be used to take advantage of certain Pokemon and go for a move like Power Up Punch to boost your attack even higher, and then killing the trapped Pokemon and getting more damage out on your opponent's team. For the negatives, Grapploct is pretty slow. There's really no way to sugarcoat this. 42 speed really isn't that great. You can certainly work around it, but there's no denying that I would rather this thing be a little bit faster. There is of course the argument for Trick Room, but I've never personally been the biggest fan of that. When it comes to the higher tiers in Smogon singles, this Pokemon does struggle a little bit against defensive threats like Crustle and Toxapex, mainly because they either resist or are immune to its stab moves. And even though your coverage isn't terrible, you really don't have much for these two Pokemon considering how common they are. This next negative really isn't persistent to Grapploct per se, but it's really more to the notion that the fighting type is rather common, and there's a lot of better fighting type Pokemon options over Grapploct, meaning there really isn't too much of a reason to use Grapploct over many other fighting type Pokemon. So first, some Grapploct sets. First we have the standard Smogon set from their website, which is Grapploct with the leftovers, Tactician ability, max HP, max special defense, careful nature, with the moves Octolock, Power Up Punch, Soak, and Arrests. Soak combined with Octolock is actually pretty interesting to trap your opponent and then make them a water type, meaning hopefully they won't be able to hit you too hard. And if they are, say, immune or resistant to fighting type moves like Power Up Punch, you could just take advantage of them by changing their type. You could make the argument to replace Rest for another offensive move, maybe even Drain Punch if you so desire, but that's really up to you. Next up we have another set that I used in PU, which is Grapploct with the Assault Vest, Tactician ability again, max HP, max attack, Adamant Nature with Power Up Punch, Drain Punch, Waterfall, and Sucker Punch. I really went for pure offense with this set and tried to make it as bulky as possible thanks to the Assault Vest. It worked out decently, however I did come across some other fighting type opponents which just seemed a lot better than my Grapploct. And now in terms of the ratings, for offense I'll give Grapploct a 3 out of 5. I would go as far as saying that Grapploct is a slightly above average offensive Pokemon thanks to its high attack stat and good offensive ability. This is pretty typical for fighting type Pokemon as most of them have pretty high attack stats, so it's not that surprising. Access to Power Up Punch does help, which I'm personally a big fan of, since Power Up Punch is essentially a setup move that can be used while you have an Assault Vest as well. I can definitely see an argument for a slightly higher rating for its offense, but if we go under the assumption that 2.5 is average, I think 3 seems about right for me for Grapploct. For defense, I'll give Grapploct a 2 out of 5. Grapploct isn't exactly meant to be a defensive powerhouse, but while using it I did notice it was able to take a couple more hits, which did surprise me. Mono Fighting isn't the worst defensive typing out there, as your only weaknesses really are Psychic and Flying, and Grapploct does pair pretty nicely with the Assault Vest, which only adds to its defense. For For versatility, I'll give Grapploct a 2 out of 5. There are a couple of different options you can go with when using Grapploct that actually function rather different from one another. You can have a more bulky AV set or a set focused on a signature move. There are certainly options here, which is nice, since you aren't forced to use the one same set with maybe 1 or 2 different moves out there. For Movepool, I'll give Grapploct a 2 out of 5. Grapplokt's Movepool does seem a little bit shallow from what I'm used to, however, that does seem to be the case for most Pokemon Generation 8, since it seems like most Pokemon have a shorter Movepool from past generations, so I can't really fault Grapploct too much for this as I normally would. It has a nice signature move, which is cool, as well as some pretty okay coverage options in Ice Punch, Sucker Punch, and Liquidation. Nothing really too amazing, but definitely not terrible, and definitely something you can work with on your team. And for Viability, I'll give Grapploct a 2 out of 5. Grapploct isn't a completely unviable Pokemon, as it does have some nice characteristics to it. The biggest issue I see with it is just outclassed by too many other fighting types, even Throw, which I saw while playing through PU with this Pokemon on Pokemon Showdown. I wouldn't go as far as saying it is an unviable Pokemon, but there really isn't too much of a reason to use it over a lot of other options. For some potential team partners, however, an obvious team partner would be a Dark type, of course, to cover that pesky Psychic weakness. I personally went for a Liepard, since it is a Dark type and I was playing in PU, and because I also wanted some fast Pokemon to pair with it, which Liepard does very well. I also made an effort to pair it with another strong physical attacking Pokemon to be sort of a backup heavy hitter to my main Grapploct. In my case, I used Bastion with a Choice Band. For my experience, I ended up using the Basculin more than the Grapploct, since the Grapploct really wasn't holding as much as I thought it would. And now for the final verdict. Compared to what I saw at first glance, Grapploct is worse than I initially thought. However, once I started using it a bit more and battling with it, I started to like it even more. It really isn't that terrible of a Pokemon, and I feel like the biggest thing holding Grapploct back is that it's just simply outclassed in a lot of ways. It does have its nice cool niche and Octolock to make it so it's not completely worthless and has at least something unique to it, but even with that in mind, I still think it is one of the worst new Pokemon to come out of Sword and Shield competitively, but at least it's not completely terrible. Let me know what you guys think about Grapplocts in the comment section down below for a chance to have your comment featured in the next worst Pokemon video, and of course let me know which other bad Pokemon you guys would like to see in the comment section down below. Make sure you guys leave a like as well, as this helps the channel tremendously, and subscribe with notifications turned on so you don't miss a future upload. Thank you guys so much for watching, have a great rest of your day, I will see you all next time, and bye bye.